All right, well, my name is Chris Chapelier. I'm a product marketing manager here at Tempo, and I'm joined today here by our Director of Solutions, Jeremy Stark. And if you're joining us today, you're most likely well aware that adopting Agile methodologies is no easy feat. And it gets even harder as you scale up in your organization. Something that looks great on paper initially may not work exactly in real life. And in fact, it said that a staggering 70% of all Agile transformations are considered to be a failure, according to a study by McKinsey. So why do companies continue to adopt and scale Agile? Well, because to thrive in this fast-moving and fiercely competitive environment, companies of all sizes and industries must have the ability to adapt to shifting market situations and customer needs with agility. Slide. So today we'll cover why, despite the challenges, Agile continues to be top of mind for many enterprises. Talk about some of the top challenges associated with scaling Agile, and how Tempo's suite of solutions can help organizations address these challenges. And then we'll end the session with the Q&A. According to the 16th Annual State of Agile report, high-performing Agile teams say they have people-centric values, a clear communicated culture, tools, the proper tools, and leadership empowerment. That means if done successfully, the benefits of Agile are not only delivered to the individuals involved, but to the entire organization, which continues to be a powerful reason to invest, and why organizations continue to do so because the benefits are there. Indeed, agility is the bridge that spans both technical delivery and the business, aka planning teams. You need to know exactly what is going on inside and out of all of your projects. So if something isn't going right, you can pivot. Or if there's a crisis or organizational changes, your teams can still operate. So by implementing Agile practices, you can answer questions like, are the business and tech teams in sync? Are the technical teams aligning up to the strategy and business outcomes defined during the planning processes? And can we connect that thread without manually aggregating all that data? So on this slide, we have two big benefits that organizations can get from scaling Agile. As I mentioned earlier, we have our Director of Solutions, Jeremy Stark, with us. Jeremy, would you like to add any more detail concerning these two value points?
Sure. So I think it's helpful when we look at the promise of Agile to go back to the beginning and look at what Agile did promise originally, which was to dramatically improve the outcomes of software projects. And it did this primarily, it brought a lot to the table, but it primarily focused on two major pillars. And the first was to force rank project priorities according to customer preferences. And the second was to execute on those priorities in short iterative cycles that were open to inspection by the customers and stakeholders. And I think it delivered on that promise at that scale. When we look at the big picture and Agile at scale today, what the promise of Agile at scale is to bring those initial gains to the enterprise. And this has had more mixed results because there are a lot of factors that are outside of tech that the enterprise is dealing with, including macro market forces, regulation, cultural differences in the global enterprise, and not just issues of linear steps, but issues of exponential scale. And so there's a lot of diversity and variety in the various frameworks that are available, as evidenced in the poll. And there's a lot of experimentation and innovation going on in this field. And Tempo has an approach to address these issues with a lot of flexibility and modularity to adapt to the enterprise's needs while preserving investments in agility. I'd say back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Jeremy. So yeah, the journey to become Agile is challenging, and scaling is even harder. And organizations face a myriad of challenges that range from lack of clear goals and metrics, to misalignment on business objectives, to lack of communication and collaboration, to organizational structure issues, and also rigid by-the-book implementations. It's important to note that while some Agile transformations may be considered failures due to not achieving all expected outcomes, they can still lead to valuable lessons and improvements within organizations. In fact, we should look at an Agile transformation as a continuous journey, and scaling Agile is an Agile process in itself. So here I have a quote by Henrik Neberg, an Agile coach and author, and he worked as a coach for companies like Lego, Mojang, and probably most famously, Spotify, which is a great example of this quote. The Spotify model quickly gained popularity as the latest and greatest and is still adopted and used today. However, the Spotify model is no longer used by Spotify teams, illustrating that even the most successful organizations are prepared to learn, adapt, and evolve their practices over time. Organizations must know this agile transition will not happen overnight and be willing to continuously reflect and experiment and encourage constant feedback to achieve organization-wide business agility. They have to have the proper tools, the right framework, and investments in the right places. And as we shared, there are numerous challenges that organizations face due to changing market conditions, customer expectations, and changing priorities. Tempo's products and solutions solve many of these challenges. Now, as organizations begin to scale Agile, a lack of visibility can lead to inefficiencies, unnecessary rework, and sometimes compliance issues. Additionally, workers are often less engaged and less satisfied when they don't fully understand how what they're doing fits into the bigger picture. And many organizations struggle with the ability to share the risk, the status, the progress information. The team leaders and the company as a whole need to make more informed decisions. And not addressing these challenges can have profound effects on business operations and those involved, from the high-level strategic planning to the tactical development work. Now, Jeremy, you've had some firsthand experience with some of these role-based challenges. Can you provide a little bit more color?
Sure. Connecting the activities going on in the team level agility with the organizational strategic planning can be very difficult from both perspectives. The teams might feel that the strategic directives coming down from management look very much like waterfall, and the management level might not understand how agile planning works from an iterative standpoint to pivot and change direction based on customer demand. And the people in the middle struggle to maintain those connections and to maintain trust between these groups in terms of the deliverables they're trying to hit. And they're not well supported in the middle by the tooling necessary to make that connection. I'd say I think the team level tooling is pretty strong at this point. The industry is pretty mature at that level. The strategic level, I think, is still coming together, and certainly the middle is probably the biggest piece where there's room for a lot of innovation and problem solving.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So the secret of getting ahead is getting started. The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks, and then start on the first one. This is a quote by Mark Twain that I really like, and I think it relates to this conversation well. So it's one of Tempo's primary value props, one of the primary value props of the solution suite. So you can start anywhere in our solution framework. And one of the starting points could be setting your complex strategic vision and themes, and then breaking them down. So I'm going to pass this off to Jeremy so we can talk about two of Tempo's solutions that focus on connecting that big strategic work with that more tactical, executable work.
So Tempo comes out of time management, capacity management, and cost management. But recently, it's been moving into strategic portfolio management with the acquisition of two best-in-class products. The first one is outside the Atlassian ecosystem, and it's called RoadMonk, and it's used for creating and visualizing corporate-level strategic roadmaps and portfolios. The second product is called Structure for Jira by Tempo, and it is a best-in-class product inside the Atlassian ecosystem for managing projects and programs. And these two products come together very nicely with a direct integration that we are working on that's scheduled for release in Q4. I'm going to show you the current state of that integration between these two products. But I'm excited about it because these products are being integrated directly. We're not using Jira integration as a middleman, although RoadMonk will integrate directly to Jira. And there are some cases where that's an appropriate integration to use. And there's some solutioning that you can do around there that's really great. But the connection straight to Structure is going to simplify the integration and configuration down to about 0, which I will show you in the demo. So I've switched over to RoadMonk first for the demo. And here I have some roadmaps that I'm working on. These are my roadmaps. And I've set up an example roadmap where we are creating a mobile app for managing habits. And we're calling it Habitat Mobile. I've got a couple other roadmaps that I'm working on, and I'm just going to sort of quickly show you. I'm not going to go deep on either of these products. I'm going to focus on the integration. but I just want to give you the flavor of some of the capabilities of each product. So I'm going to go into the device interfaces roadmap that I have here and just show you really the simplicity of the RoadMonk tool. And what I like about RoadMonk, is it's built from the ground up for a leadership persona. So it's very easy to enter data that really represents millions of dollars worth of spend over several quarters potentially, and manage that data and get a strategy together that you can then share with the organization. And just to give you like a quick example, we might add another item here and a sub item. And when we switch to create a view here, we'll just see that view rolled into the quarter by quarter overlay. So let's go ahead and take this sort of dry view here. And let's create a swim lane view. Let's call this quarters. Go ahead and create it. So here we just have a very basic view of the top level items we're trying to accomplish. I can pull in the sub items and we start to get a little more detail. You'll also notice in the data view here, I have a strategic themes column that I've added because this organization isn't just coordinating on the product level, they're also coordinating to strategic themes that they've identified within their market that they want to make sure they're addressing. Now, this one is strictly addressing some administrative stuff about setting up the app and so forth, but the other roadmaps we'll get into, will cover more of the strategic themes. Let's go back to the swim lane and let's go ahead and start organizing this a little bit more interestingly according to strategic theme. So now we can see that this particular roadmap is covering mostly administrative stuff and the other themes are not covered. So we can go over here and just drop empty headers. And now we have a pretty good view into month over month, but this would be sort of a quarterly view of the kinds of things that the leadership would want to see and when they would be likely to see them at a very high level. So let me go back to my roadmaps and go into my core app, which is the Habitat mobile app. And you can see that we're hitting some additional themes here. We want to address the psychological aspects of habit formation, motivational, administrative stuff. We want to keep track of how much work we're making people do and so forth. And then we have this nicely laid out over basically a quarterly timeline. You can also flip this over to a more traditional Gantt style timeline where we have the big chunky things that we want to do. And when we hover, it'll show us immediately where the sub items are for that particular item. We can slide these around if 1.0 is going to be out a little later, and it will pull all of the sub items along with it. It does all the things you would expect in a view like this. So at this point, RoadMonk customers have put together a roadmap, and the next thing they want to do is start executing. And this is where structure comes in, and this integration with structure is really interesting. So we have our roadmap here, and we can come over to integrations. And we could set up a Jira integration, which would allow us to connect into a Jira data object, which is a project, and do some specification around the ticket types that we want to work with and so forth. If you've ever integrated with Jira, it works very similar to that. But this time we're going to use a structure integration, and we're going to go straight to structure through structure's APIs to get this data into a structure and get us working without having to know the internals of the configurations of Jira. So let's go ahead and do that. So there's a little wizard here. We're going to select the Jira instance that we want to connect to. Now, this is actually multi-instance at this point. If you have multiple Jira instances, you can select the one that you want to integrate with, and you can do this per roadmap at the RoadMonk level to aggregate work across different Jira instances. I'm going to make my structure private. You can also set it up as default public. But that's it. I'm just going to tell it to connect and go create a structure for me, and we're off. So it's just transitioned us into Jira. created a structure, and it's dropped the roadmunk items into that structure. So now we have the roadmunk items and the detail items that are in roadmunk available in structure. So from here, this would likely be handed off to either a project manager to connect the strategic roadmap to the work that's going to be necessary in Jira to accomplish those objectives. Or potentially, if it's a higher level, larger roadmap, this might go to a PMO, and they might assign individual project managers to each of the levels. The flexibility of how this is used from a persona perspective based on the amount of data you're working with is really up to you. But the structure's there and it's connected to roadmunk. So you have that traceability from the strategic level where you've got executive leadership, the product group, and the PMO generally working together to define the strategy. And now it's available in Jira at the top level of a structure. But we want to drill this into Jira and start getting the items that the teams are going to be working on connected to the capabilities that leadership wants to deliver. So to do that, I'm going to switch to a double grid in structure. And I'm going to bring up a structure that I have here that pulls up a bunch of work that is not necessarily only related to this project, but involves the teams that are going to be related to this project. So here we have the iOS team and a back-end team called Core. And what I'm going to do is start bringing some of this work over to the roadmunk roadmap. So let's say that this is here. And you can see that the status column is already starting to light up because, as is sometimes the case, the iOS team knew what was coming down and they started doing some work before the strategic plan showed up. So I'm just going to connect up some of that work that they were working on. I'll also bring in this work and tree that out. Okay, we've got some stuff in progress, and I'll bring in count creation. Probably not lining these up semantically correct, but you get the idea. All right. So as you can see now, we've gone from the very simple creation of a strategic roadmap to the connection of that roadmap with the work going on in Jira. And we didn't really have to configure anything. We just told it what we wanted to do. The data showed up, and now we're just dragging the data across into the roadmap plan. So once we start getting the data in order, we can go and use some other features of structure to start planning this out. So I'm going to pull up the Gantt chart. And you can see there's some work that was already done by the team as far as dependencies and so forth. I do still have to do a little configuration in Gantt in order to allow me to manually schedule these. So some of this configuration will be handled as well by the integration, because the primary use case will be to get this data in there from roadmunk, move the data from Jira into the roadmunk plan, and then start planning it out. We don't expect edge cases to that. So we will just do this little configuration piece now. And I'll just say 3 days is a little bit better. Save that off. All right. So here now we can start just moving our plan around according to what we think is likely to happen. We can talk to the teams and get their sense of how this plan will come together. We can create dependencies. Gantt is a very, very powerful tool, and we could spend an hour on structure and an hour on Gantt and an hour on roadmunk alone. But I think you get the idea. And Gantt in structure in the Atlassian marketplace is probably one of the best Gantts there, if not the best Gantt there. It's a very deep tool with a rich feature set. So from here, we can add a couple columns to structure to sort of show us what's going on. I'm going to add the assignee field. Oh, okay, now I see some people here. But I want to start planning this project. So I'm going to tell Gantt to use the assignee field to determine who's assigned where. And I can see, oh, okay, now these are the people that are on the project. And I can start to see where they're scheduled to work on this project and for what ticket they're working on. And if I start sliding this stuff around and I start to overlap work, the Gantt will do what you expect and show the over allocation of people, and you can basically schedule out the project so that you're not overworking any particular resource or encountering any bottlenecks. It will also auto level and things like that. Like I said, Gantt is deep and will probably take more than an hour to get into it. So I want to go, so here in really a few minutes, we've pretty much built out a roadmap plan. Now there would be meetings and conversations generally. You can't do this in a vacuum, but you can see the tool isn't going to be in your way. Let me switch back to RoadMuck, and I just want to point out one thing there that happened when we go back to the items, which is that they acquired this new field called external ID. What happened with RoadMonk when we integrated it with Structure is that it moved the source of truth from RoadMonk to Structure. So going forward, RoadMonk will harvest the data in Structure and present it in the roadmap views within RoadMonk. So when we go to the quarters view, for example, as things change in Structure, they'll change here. This is targeted Q4. In the future iteration, we're going to harvest status data from Structure itself. Structure has a lot of capabilities in terms of aggregating the data in Jira and presenting it in aggregate form, and RoadMonk will harvest that and overlay it on top of your roadmap for very high level things like progress and risks. And additionally, with a connection to Cost Tracker, things like run rate burns, budgets, and other information that leadership might want to see. So RoadMonk really becomes the agenda for a bi-weekly or monthly status meeting, however your cadence is for working with leadership and stakeholders in your organization. And they don't have to go into Jira, but they can harvest the Jira data at an aggregate level in order to get a sense of what's going on. And if there are questions, you can always go straight to Jira from RoadMonk and open up the structure that's managing your project and drill into it if necessary. So with that, we really are presenting the backbone of the SPM product for Tempo, where we have the management at the strategic level through the project management level and execution within Jira. And one of the key value propositions that we have is that we're Jira native. This isn't using the integration that RoadMonk had into Jira. This is using an integration directly into a tool that understands Jira at a very deep level. So the simplicity that we can achieve in the connection to Jira and the breadth of Jira data that we can manage with that connection is very high. Lastly, I just want to show one more little feature of RoadMonk. If we go back to my roadmaps, in the demo organization that I had put together, all these roadmaps are related. There's the mobile app, there's the social platform we're putting together, and we're looking to integrate with various fitness devices. So I can take these roadmaps and I can actually put them all together into a single portfolio. So let's just call this like wellness platform, and I'll spell it correctly. Let's pick the swim lane view. And let's add all these roadmaps to my portfolio. And let's go ahead and add, strategic themes. And then let's add the data items. So now I have all of my roadmaps in one comprehensive view. So with that, I will switch back to the presentation.
Great stuff, Jeremy. That's really cool integration. to piggyback on what Jeremy was saying about RoadMonk and structure being the backbone of our Agile Scale solution suite, we wanted to show you that how the rest of our products fit into that, into the portfolio. So we created this image to show how you can get the most out of your Agile practices, the modular and flexible solutions that are highly adaptable, fully scalable, and easily adoptable, so that you can better communicate, align, and execute programs faster. So we just witnessed how two of Tempo's products come together to solve some of the biggest challenges when scaling Agile. Now, we're going to take a brief look at the rest of the portfolio, the ones that you see on the bottom left and right of the screen, give a high-level overview of those functional areas, which we're calling team capacity and financial management and time management and reporting. And we're going to start with the team capacity and financial management products that we have. So start off, we have comprehensive capacity planning with Planner by Tempo. And this ensures your individual employees, as well as your teams, have the capacity to complete certain work in a designated time frame, in addition to identifying where shared resources are allocated. We also have Cost Tracker by Tempo that leverages time tracking data actually from timesheets to add monetary success metrics to assign work to view the budgets, the costs, the revenue, status, and scope of your individual projects, or have those projects roll up into portfolios and see the performance of those portfolios. And we also have the relatively new Liquid Planner by Tempo that uses predictive scheduling to enable resource allocation between projects and different teams and optimizes timelines and its competing priorities. You know, something that's always a challenge with product and development teams, especially when scaling Agile. Now, Tempo also has the functional area of time management and reporting. Timesheets by Tempo. It uses the newly released AI-enabled suggestions to ensure team members are spending the right amount of time on the right work, and to understand where and how time is being spent with your Agile teams. And this also has integrations with Planner and Cost Tracker. And we also have custom charts by Jira by Tempo. It's for Jira by Tempo. This is also a fairly recent acquisition and allows users to create comprehensive reports using fields like due dates, labels, story points, assignees, affected versions, etc. And helps Scrum Masters write more complex queries and find more detailed answers about blockers and dependencies. And we're also in the planning process of scheduling webinars highlighting these products and functional areas, and we'll communicate these once they're scheduled. Now, if you'd like to keep an eye on how Tempo continuously, how we are Agile, how we continuously enhance our products to deliver the best value to our current and future customers, I wanted to provide the snapshot of our public-facing roadmap. This is relatively new to the organization. And it can be found on tempo.io/roadmap. And all of our products come together to form this solution suite that we have the value pillars that we're using called modular, flexible, and Jira native. So it's modular, so your business can start with the greatest need to build on success and improve as you go. And that circle image that I shared earlier shows how you can come in at any point in that circle and whatever your greatest need or greatest area of comfort for your business, and then scale to different solutions within Tempo's portfolio. Offer flexibility so users can utilize the tools how they want to best serve the needed outcomes, regardless of chosen Agile methodology. If you're using Safe or DAD or Spotify or whatever, our solution set can help you with your Agile scale needs. And also the third one that Jeremy touched on in his presentation is that we're Jira native. We have embedded products that are simple to implement, easy to adopt, and are cost effective. And we also like to know if you're interested in joining our early access program to give you the chance to contribute vital insights and play a pivotal role in shaping the future of Tempo's product delivery. And thank you so much. And we have time for just a few questions. Jeremy, you have a question that says, do you know if Tempo will be updating the tools to be more flexible for a services-based company? It says we're currently very focused towards DevOps and SWDev.
Yes, for the ProServe market, which I'm assuming that's what the question is about. Planner is getting a lot of work to free it up from the very tasky assignment model it currently uses to a more Agile-based, backlog-focused model. So there is some work that's been done coming out very soon where you can coordinate work across teams without having to do assignment. And that should free up some of the administrative work of working with Planner when you're in an Agile environment. If you want to follow up with a little bit more specifics of your use case, I can probably provide a little bit more detail on that answer.
Is there further development plan for the PI planning boards in structure? What's been released is still very preliminary.
Yes, that's a very big topic within the organization right now. Planner, the capabilities that I just mentioned about Planner overlap with what the structure PI Planner does. And we are discussing where that capability is going to live. So the capability will be delivered. We're not sure if it's going to be the PI Planner that's currently in Structure Labs, the planner work that's been done, or something new that we put together out of both of them. But it will be focused on working across Planner and Structure in particular, so that you have a tool that's going to cooperate with the primary capacity and project management component of our SPM solution. So yes, we're very focused on that.
Thank you for that. How does your tool help with us to plan the things using estimates based only?
Estimates based only. So once you're inside of Jira, you have access to all of the estimation mechanics that Jira provides, and Structure supports all of those estimation mechanics. Additionally, if you're using timesheets, Structure supports the timesheets mechanics as well. So that goes back to our flexibility pillar, really, which is work the way you want to work, use the tools you want to use. If you're using story points or hours or t-shirt sizing, Structure will be able to aggregate that data. Even if you've got teams that are doing different things, you can bring that data together in a Structure and manage it. Again, if you have a follow-up question with a few more details, I can answer that more specifically.
Thanks, Jeremy. Jeremy, can you please share the unique features of RoadMonk that are not available in advanced roadmaps and big picture?
Yeah, well, I will say that the RoadMonk is built from a persona perspective for leadership. And if you engage with RoadMonk for strategic planning and you engage with advanced roadmaps for strategic planning, the differences really start to become apparent. But we do have a RoadMonk representative on the call here, and I'd like to defer to them to answer that question.
There are several different things that we do in RoadMonk, which allows us to differentiate ourselves from other providers like Big Picture and roadmaps for Jira. In terms of visualization and the way we set it up, it's easy to use. We set up built-in templates for users. We've allowed collaboration to be set up. We've set it up so that we start from feedback being presented from our customers, allowing them to be prioritized in idea format, and then setting up our roadmaps in a strategic manner while allowing us to set up visualization in swim lanes or timeline, as well as set up those roadmaps to integrate with Jira, ADO, Trello, Asana, GitLabs, and we're working on more and setting up more integration and being able to combine all those roadmaps when we're dealing with executive level and being able to visualize them in a way that's easier for the users to utilize. So there's no in-depth training that's required to do this. So that sets us up differently from other platforms that are out there.
So thank you so much, Nora. I got one. We're already using RoadMonk and Structure. Excellent. The users in RoadMonk are very limited for now. Is there a way to give a read access to everyone in the company?
Roadmonking, and so what you can do is you can collaborate with different users that don't have licensing in regard to being part of your account by sharing a URL, HTML, or even in PNG. So you can share those links, set a password on them, and have a security level to determine who has access by sharing specific individuals.
Excellent, thank you. This one's for you, Jeremy. It's what is best for Gantt, Structure or RoadMonk?
Well, it depends upon what you're doing. The Gantt in RoadMonk is really to lay out millions of dollars of spend over several quarters at a very high level, and to coordinate the leadership and then disseminate that coordination out to the rest of the organization for alignment. So the simplicity of RoadMonk really plays to that use case. Whereas in structure, there's a lot more capability for that Gantt to represent all kinds of conditions in terms of relationships and scheduling and estimations for the data that it's managing. And that can get in the way of that sort of simple communication at the strategic level. So really, these Gantts are solving different problems that when you connect them, they solve the larger problem of deciding what to do and then being able to effectively do it. So they're not really playing in the same corners, but they're in the same arena.
Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, will you be showing us how planner and structure work together more?
Yes, I almost added that to this demo, but I felt that it was really going to require a webinar of its own. So just to briefly touch on what we're doing there. If you're a structure user and you've used the resourcing in structure, the resourcing in structure is local to each structure, and you have to recreate the resourcing names and so forth for each structure. So that's a longstanding request coming out of the structure community, is to have centralized resource planning. With Tempo Planner, we are now integrating structure directly to Planner, where it will pull teams and people and work calendars and other things from a central repository, greatly simplifying Gantt configuration, but also allowing structure users to plan in their structure and then see whether or not they're colliding with planning being done in other structures. So that work, I would say we're about 50% of the way through it. We can connect to Planner, we can pull in people, and we can show their allocations within structure. And we can do a few other cool things like pull in the calendars and so forth, so you don't have to do your calendar definition in Gantt anymore. There's a lot of cool stuff coming. Probably Q3, Q4, we're gonna really be showcasing that stuff. I mean, certainly Q4, maybe Q3.
Excellent, thanks, Jeremy. Would you be having a presentation focusing on cost tracker and also Tempo timesheets? I can take this one. We actually have the Tempo timesheets, or timesheets by Tempo, rather. Presentation scheduled for September 12th. It's going to be focusing on billable hours and Tempo accounts. And yes, we are going to have a cost tracker one, I believe sometime in September. A date hasn't been nailed down yet, but once we do know that, we'll be sure to communicate that. A lot of cool things have been added to cost tracker in the past year. And we feel it's a good opportunity to help help show everyone like what it can do and all the different cool stuff that's been added. I think this one's for you, Jeremy. How do custom fields work, especially if you tag them?
How do custom fields work, especially if you tag them? I guess I'm going to have to answer this from the terms of RoadMonk, because I showed a custom field in there. I'm not sure what tagging means. But what RoadMonk allows you to do is create various kinds of custom fields. Like, for example, I created a custom field called strategic themes, and I entered in some very high level sort of market awareness themes that we wanted to make sure we were hitting when we were doing our road mapping. And when you do a roadmap visualization in RoadMonk, it allows you to add those fields as headers and pivot on those fields to show the roadmap according to the data that you have entered. So for example, in the demo, it was strategic themes, but it could be anything that you want. And you can add multiple of them, and you can add in subheaders. So these roadmaps can really represent sort of these high level concepts that are frankly very hard to represent inside of Jira itself, and to visualize them in ways that are easy to understand and meaningful for the organization.
Thanks, Jeremy. Seeing if we might have time for a couple more questions. You already have timesheets, planner, cost tracker, etc., and you want to add RoadMonk. Is there a bundle cost?
There is an effort internally. It's in progress, and there's been progress made on it to move all of these apps into a single code in the Atlassian marketplace so that we can bundle them. So for example, the entire structure product line, including Gantt and Deliver and Pages and so forth, is bundled because it's all within the same Atlassian company code. In order to bundle the Tempo products, we need to do that work. We're doing that work so that we can create these bundles. So those look for bundle pricing, look for the bundle coming your way. We are on that. It might be in our roadmap if you look.
Yes, and that roadmap is updated often. So please keep checking back on the website, tempo.io/roadmap. Well, thank you so much for joining our webinar. Really appreciate it. And if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out.